He walked the streets like a mayor, but his office had no doors. If you needed him, you found him. If you're drawn to the untold power dynamics of American history, stay with us. This story changes everything you think you know about crime and community. Lower East Side, Manhattan. Winter, 1923, temperature below freezing. A police officer enters a hotel room on Mulberry Street. Vivian Gordon lies in bed with a man, not her husband. The officer arrests her. The man walks free. Gordon goes to jail. She is convicted, sent upstate to a reformatory. Her husband, a U.S. Marshal, gets custody of their daughter. Gordon suspects a frame-up. She is correct. The police work for Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall controls the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party controls New York City. The mob controls Tammany Hall. Officers frame women for prostitution. Lawyers charge high fees to get them released. Judges take bribes. The money moves up the chain. Everyone gets paid. Gordon writes letters in 1931. She plans to testify before the Seabury Commission. Within days, she is found strangled in Van Cortlandt Park. Her murder is never solved. But her case brings down a mayor and exposes a system where police serve politicians, politicians serve gangsters, and no one serves the people. This is why neighborhoods looked elsewhere for help. 5 Points, Manhattan, 1890s through 1920s. The intersection of Worth, Baxter, and Park Streets' 5 Points is the most violent slum in America. Irish gangs controlled it first, the Dead Rabbits, the Wyos. Then Italian immigrants arrive. Paul Kelly unites the remaining gang members. He forms the 5 Points Gang. Over 1,500 members. They run brothels, protection rackets, drug rings. Johnny Torrio works for Kelly. Lucky Luciano works for Kelly. Al Capone works for Kelly. These men learn their trade in 5 Points, but the gang does more than crime. Kelly speaks Italian and English. He negotiates disputes between immigrant families and landlords. He finds jobs for young men. He provides bail money when police arrest neighborhood residents. He operates from the New Brighton Dance Hall on Great Jones Street. People come to him with problems the city will not solve. The police do not help 5 Points residents. Officers demand bribes. They frame innocent people. They protect criminals who pay more. Irish cops distrust Italian immigrants. They see them as criminals by nature. When residents report theft or assault, police ignore them. When residents need protection, police offer none. The system is designed to extract money, not provide service. So residents turn to Paul Kelly. He speaks their language. He grew up in their neighborhood. When he takes their money, they see what they get in return. A resolved dispute, a found job, protection from rival gangs. The transaction is clear: East Harlem, 1920s and 1930s, also called Italian Harlem, bounded by East 96th Street and East 125th Street. Over 100,000 Italian immigrants live here. They work as laborers, street vendors, factory workers. They live in crowded tenements. Some apartments house 3 families in 4 rooms. The city provides no adequate sanitation. Garbage piles up on streets. Tuberculosis spreads. Child mortality rates exceed other Manhattan neighborhoods. City officials rarely visit. When they do, they collect fines or taxes. Building inspectors demand bribes to overlook violations. Health inspectors do the same. Police officers shake down street vendors for protection money. The vendors pay twice, once to police, once to local gangsters. The police money buys nothing. The gangster money buys actual protection. Vito Genovese grows up in East Harlem. Born in Italy, arrives in New York at age 15. He settles near Mulberry Street, then moves to East Harlem. He works for Giuseppe Morello, who controls the 107th Street mob. Genovese rises through violence and cunning. By the 1930s, he is a powerful figure. But Genovese understands something. Terror alone does not build loyalty. He provides services. When families cannot pay rent, Genovese covers it. When someone needs a job, Genovese finds one in a neighborhood business. When a store faces robbery, Genovese ensures it stops. He attends weddings, funerals, church festivals. He is visible, accessible. He listens. The mayor does not attend weddings in East Harlem. The police commissioner does not listen to complaints about corrupt officers. City council members do not visit during epidemics. But Genovese is there. So is Frank Costello. So are other mob figures. They operate in the gap between what government promises and what it delivers. Tammany Hall controls New York politics for over a century. The Democratic political machine trades favors for votes. Before public welfare exists, Tammany bosses help constituents with heating, healthcare, rent. But by the 1920s, Tammany is corrupt beyond reform. Mayor James Walker takes office in 1926. He is charming, well-dressed, popular. He is also deeply corrupt. A special investigation later reveals he accepted over $1 million in bribes. His administration hands out city contracts to friends. Judges owe their positions to Tammany Hall. Police leadership rotates based on political loyalty, not competence. The 1930 investigation led by Samuel Seabury exposes the system. Police officers testify they earn thousands of dollars beyond their salaries through frame-ups and bribes. One vice squad officer on a salary of $3,000 per year has tens of thousands in his bank account. He cannot explain it. Judges resign rather than face questioning. The investigation reveals a price list. Promotion to sergeant costs a certain amount. Promotion to lieutenant costs more. Everything is for sale. Governor Franklin Roosevelt orders the investigation. He wants to clean up the Democratic Party before running for president. The Seabury Commission interviews over 1,000 witnesses. They uncover systematic corruption in every city department. The sheriffs have massive savings from unexplained sources. The bidding process for city contracts is rigged. Money flows up to Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall protects the mob. The mob operates with impunity. Neighborhoods see this. They understand their taxes, fund a system that robs them. Police do not protect. They extort. Judges do not dispense justice. They sell it. Politicians do not serve constituents. They serve themselves. Little Italy, Manhattan. Mulberry Street. 1920s through 1940s. The heart of Italian New York. Mulberry Street runs through a 6-block area between Canal and Houston Streets. 10,000 Italians live here, packed into 5- and 6-story tenements. The street is narrow. Clotheslines stretch between buildings. Vendors sell vegetables, fish, bread. The smell of cooking mixes with garbage and exhaust. Children play in the street because there are no parks nearby. Every business on Mulberry Street pays protection money: butchers, bakers, restaurants, barbers, social clubs. The mob controls them all, but protection money buys something real. No robbery, no vandalism, no harassment from rival gangs. If a store owner has a dispute with a supplier, mob figures mediate. If a landlord tries to evict someone unfairly, mob figures intervene. The service is real, even if the method is criminal. Giuseppe Morello operates from Mulberry Street before Lucky Luciano. Ignazio Lupo, called the Wolf, controls Manhattan's Little Italy with Morello. They run extortion operations, but they also function as power brokers. They resolve vendettas brought from Sicily. They arrange marriages. They lend money when banks will not. They are woven into community life. The police raid Little Italy frequently in the 1920s. They arrest men on suspicion, hold them without charge, demand payoffs for release. Italian immigrants fear police more than they fear gangsters. Police represent an external threat that speaks a different language and shows open contempt. Gangsters are internal. They speak Italian. They grew up in the same poverty. They remember the same struggles. This creates a twisted form of trust. Not moral trust, but practical trust. When a Mulberry Street shopkeeper needs help, he does not call the police. They will ignore him or demand money. He goes to the social club on the corner. He speaks to someone connected. The problem gets solved. The system works, even though it is corrupt. Prohibition transforms this dynamic. The 18th Amendment becomes law in 1920. Alcohol sales become illegal. Criminal gangs become extraordinarily rich. What were local operations become national networks. Lucky Luciano organizes the five families in 1931. The Luciano family, the Mangano family, the Galliano family, the Profacci family, the Bonanno family. Together they control New York's underworld. They divide territory. They establish rules. They coordinate operations. But even as they grow powerful, mob leaders maintain neighborhood connections. Frank Costello, known as the Prime Minister of the Underworld, grew up poor in East Harlem. He never forgets it. He funds local charities. He keeps his office accessible. People come to him with problems. He listens. He solves them when he can. This builds loyalty stronger than fear alone ever could. Chicago, February 1931. A different city, but a relevant example. Al Capone opens a soup kitchen at 935 South State Street. The Great Depression has devastated Chicago. Unemployment exceeds 20%. Families go hungry. The city provides minimal relief. Capone's kitchen serves 3 meals a day free, no questions asked. Coffee, soup, bread, sometimes meat. Over 120,000 meals served. Capone is a killer. He ordered the St. Valentine's Day massacre 2 years earlier, 7 men gunned down in a warehouse, but he also feeds the hungry when the government does not. This creates a complicated legacy. People know he is a criminal. They also know he helps when City Hall fails. New York mob figures do similar work, though less publicly. During winter, some families in Little Italy and East Harlem receive coal deliveries. No one claims credit. Everyone knows the source. During Christmas, turkeys appear at the doors of poor families. Cash envelopes arrive for families facing eviction. These are not acts of charity. They are investments in community goodwill. But the result is the same. People get help. The Seabury investigation concludes in 1932. Mayor Walker resigns in September. He flees to Europe. Fiorello LaGuardia becomes mayor in 1934. LaGuardia is different. He is reform-minded. He fights corruption. He modernizes the police department. He goes after the mob. LaGuardia bans artichokes in 1935. The mob controls the artichoke market. They extort farmers and distributors. LaGuardia calls mobsters bums and declares he will drive them from the city. He targets Lucky Luciano. He targets Frank Costello. He raids their operations. He closes their businesses. But LaGuardia also addresses root causes. He invests in public works. He builds parks in crowded neighborhoods. He expands public health services. He creates recreational programs for youth. He understands that mob power grows in the gap between community needs and government response. He tries to close that gap. This works, but slowly. Mob power does not disappear overnight. The 5 families adapt. They move into labor unions construction, garbage collection. They become more sophisticated, less visible, more entrenched. Lower East Side. Immigrant neighborhoods, 1920s and 1930s, not just Italians. Jews face similar conditions. Irish face similar conditions. The Jewish mob operates alongside the Italian mob Arnold Rothstein, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel. They come from the same poverty. They see the same police corruption. They build the same community connections. When Jewish families need help navigating landlord disputes or finding jobs, mob-connected figures provide assistance. The system replicates across ethnic lines. Irish neighborhoods have their own history. Tammany Hall itself began as an Irish political machine. Irish immigrants arrived earlier in the 1840s and 1850s. By the 1920s, they dominate police and fire departments. But poor Irish neighborhoods still face exploitation. Irish gangs still fill the gap between official government and community need. What ties these experiences together is systematic failure. City government in the 1920s and 1930s is not designed to serve poor immigrant communities. It is designed to extract from them. Taxes, fines, bribes, payoffs. The flow of money goes up, not down. Police corruption is not a few bad officers. It is structural. Promotions are purchased. Beats are assigned based on profit potential. Vice squads operate frame-up schemes. Patrol officers run protection rackets. The system rewards corruption and punishes honesty. Frank Serpico will expose this again in the 1970s. He will testify that police corruption pervades the NYPD. The Knapp Commission will confirm it. But in the 1920s and 1930s, everyone already knows. The Seabury Commission documents it in detail. Nothing changes until leadership changes. This is why neighborhoods trust mob figures. Not because gangsters are good. They are not. They kill, they extort, they deal drugs, they ruin lives, but they operate within a system that is already predatory. And unlike City Hall, they deliver. East Harlem, 1935, March 19th, evening. A rumor spreads through the neighborhood. A 16-year-old black youth, Lino Rivera, has been beaten by police at Crest Department Store on 125th Street. The rumor is false. Rivera was caught shoplifting and released, but the rumor spreads because it is believable. Police brutality against black and Hispanic residents is common. A crowd gathers. Anger builds. By nightfall, the Harlem riot of 1935 erupts. Windows are smashed. Stores are looted. 3 people die. Over 100 are injured. The riot exposes deep frustration with police and city government. Mayor LaGuardia appoints a commission to investigate. The commission finds systemic discrimination in employment, housing, and policing. Recommendations are made. Few are implemented. This riot shows that mob influence in immigrant communities is part of a larger pattern. When government fails to protect and serve, people turn elsewhere. In Italian neighborhoods, they turn to the mob. In black neighborhoods, they turn to numbers runners and local power brokers like Bumpy Johnson. In Jewish neighborhoods, they turn to connected businessmen and community leaders. The structure is similar across communities. Someone local, who speaks the language and understands the culture, provides services that official channels deny. This person is outside the law, but they are effective. They get results. This builds loyalty. Mulberry Street. Late 1930s. The mob is at its height of power. Lucky Luciano is convicted on prostitution charges in 1936. He is sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. Frank Costello assumes control of the Luciano family. Costello is strategic. He avoids violence when possible. He focuses on gambling and political influence. He maintains connections in Little Italy even as he expands operations into Manhattan's garment district, and Harlem Costello understands that visibility has costs. The more public the mob becomes, the more pressure prosecutors face to act. He prefers quiet operations, bribes instead of bullets, influence instead of intimidation. But he maintains the old neighborhood connections. He knows they matter. Vito Genovese, meanwhile, operates differently. He is violent, ruthless. He flees to Italy in 1937 to avoid murder charges. He will not return until after World War II. When he does return, he will challenge Costello for control. Their rivalry will define New York mob politics for 2 decades, but in the late 1930s, the system remains intact. The mob provides services neighborhoods rely on them. City Hall remains distant and corrupt. Police remain predatory. The cycle continues. World War II changes everything. December 1941. The United States enters the war. The federal government needs help. The New York waterfront is vulnerable to sabotage. German submarines operate off the East Coast. Intelligence about Sicily is needed for the planned invasion of Italy. The U.S. Navy approaches Meyer Lansky. Lansky approaches Lucky Luciano in prison. Luciano agrees to help. He orders dock workers to watch for sabotage. He provides contacts in Sicily for the invasion. This cooperation becomes known as Operation Underworld. It is controversial. Some historians doubt its effectiveness, but it happens. The mob cooperates with the government. In 1946, Luciano's sentence is commuted. He is deported to Italy. He never returns to the United States. His departure marks a shift. The old neighborhood bosses begin to fade. A new generation takes over. They are more sophisticated. less connected to immigrant communities, more focused on business than on community standing. The 1950s and 1960s see the mob's transformation. They move into legitimate businesses, labor unions, casinos in Las Vegas. They distance themselves from the old neighborhoods. Little Italy begins to shrink. Italian Americans move to the suburbs. The community ties that sustained mob power begin to weaken. Federal law enforcement also evolves. The Kefauver Committee hearings in 1950 expose mob operations nationally. Television broadcasts bring mobsters into American living rooms, Frank Costello testifies. His hands are shown on camera as he refuses to answer questions. The public sees the mob's reach and power. Pressure to act increases. In 1957, the Appalachian Meeting in upstate New York is raided. Over 100 mob leaders from across the country are arrested. The meeting was meant to be secret. Its exposure embarrasses the mob and proves the existence of a national crime syndicate. The FBI, previously skeptical about organized crime's scope, begins serious investigation. The 1970 RICO Act provides federal prosecutors with powerful new tools. RICO allows prosecution of entire criminal organizations, not just individual crimes. Through the 1980s and 1990s, federal prosecutors use RICO to dismantle the five families. Bosses are convicted and imprisoned. The mob's power declines, but the fundamental dynamic remains. Wherever government fails to serve communities, other powers emerge. In the 1920s and 1930s, mob figures filled that gap in immigrant neighborhoods. They provided services, protection, and mediation. They did so for their own benefit, but the service was real. City government during that era was structurally corrupt. Tammany Hall sold everything. Police departments operated as criminal enterprises. The judicial system served the highest bidder. In that environment, mob figures who operated with transparency about their corruption seemed more trustworthy than officials who pretended to legitimacy while robbing citizens blind. This is not to romanticize the mob. They killed. They destroyed families. They peddled addiction and misery. But understanding why neighborhoods trusted them requires understanding what they offered that government did not. They offered language. They spoke Italian, Yiddish, Irish, Gaelic. City Hall spoke English with contempt. They offered access. You could find a mob figure on Mulberry Street any afternoon. You could not find the mayor. They offered resolution. When you paid for protection, you got protection. When you paid City Hall, you got nothing. They offered identity. Mob figures came from the neighborhood. They remembered poverty. They maintained connections. Politicians came for votes and left. The trust was transactional, not moral. It was born of necessity, not admiration. But it was real. The Seabury Commission exposed the system's corruption in exhaustive detail. Over 1,000 witnesses testified. Evidence filled thousands of pages. The investigation proved what everyone already knew. New York City government served itself, not its people. In that environment, residents made rational calculations. They chose the devil they knew over the devil who wore a badge. By 1945, the system began to change. LaGuardia's reforms took hold. Federal oversight increased. Public welfare expanded. The New Deal created government programs that actually served citizens. The gap between community needs and government response began to close. The mob adapted but never disappeared. Their power diminished, but their legacy remained. They had shown that in America, if the government fails to serve, something else will.